a lot of the memories are just the small moments. So I remember like before every game when we would go in the stairwell and be like, who are we? HVB, and then like put our jerseys on and run out. I just remember like being all huddled together and like the excitement of getting ready to play. And I miss that. And I actually have like a picture of one of our huddles in my office, and people always ask me, they're like, oh, is that from when your team like won a championship? And I was like, no, we didn't win any championships. This is just like a random game, a random team huddle, but it brings me so much joy. So I think that's just kind of, again, this just little moments that everyone else has talked about.
Same thing. So hard to pick memories, but I think for me, I was so passionate about volleyball that I have to say that my best memories, the first one is playing Nebraska in this ginormous arena, like 10,000 people, ginormous. We walked in and we're like, this is not the MAC. But it was just the most amazing experience. But the end of it, we fought really hard. We won the first game, which actually shocked us and Nebraska. So we ended up losing because I think we were in shock that we just had beat the team that ended up winning the whole NCAA tournament. And the end, we put up a good fight the rest of the time. And at the end, the entire arena stood up and like gave us a standing ovation because they were shocked that we actually could play good volleyball. So that was amazing.
That was amazing.
Tier worthy for sure. And then I think honestly, my other, and this is Jeff and Coach here are gonna roll their eyes, but I think that my favorite other memories are just like how defeated I felt when we lost. Like I was so bummed and I didn't want to talk to anyone on the bus. And I wasn't like mean, but I just had so much passion for Harvard volleyball and wanted us to win so bad that I think I miss that level of passion in my life and in my job. And I think that led to like many other great memories of team bonding and things like that. But that was just an amazing way to feel about a sport.
I would echo what everyone else said. The only other thing to add touches a little bit back on what Corey had said earlier, which just like that amazing experience you have being an athlete with these awesome people, like so many of them your best friends. You look for, at least for me, I'm always like seeking out like that similar experience or like the similar, like that camaraderie or like wanting, like it's almost this like, I don't want to say standard to compare it to because everything is just different, right? But I don't know. It was such an amazing feeling. And I think that's the way you described it, Corey. It was like that feeling, like, how will you ever recreate that? Like, there's nothing really like it. Even if you're still competitive in athletics, but it just, I don't know. I guess that's like something that I just continue to take with me is like that awesome feeling of competition and camaraderie and like still kind of always wanting to have, to dabble back into that, I guess.
I only could think of two things, and I don't think either one became a tradition. I think they were kind of situational. And one was the letter writing campaign we did freshman year to try to raise funds so that Harvard Varsity Club would match it so we could become a varsity team sophomore year. And that, I think that was a fairly typical model in that era when they were trying to figure out what Title IX was. They were still, unclear about what role Title IX was going to play in collegiate education for women. And anyway, we had a very generous parent who helped us get over the line with a large check. But that wasn't something that we did every year. It was just to get that initial status. And then the other thing that I remembered is in our second year, and I think it did continue after, I think it was not just that junior year, but it went beyond. We had training camp down on the Cape. Nina mentioned this before we started recording. We were training at an elementary school in Wellfleet, and then a squad member's family had a large rambling house on the Cape that we took over. And what was fun about that weekend, it wasn't even going to the harbor or going to the beach, in between practices. It was learning how to cook with each other, because we were all like famished. At least that's what I remember, is that we never could get enough nutrition. We were really struggling with it. And we were all trying to figure out, because none of us knew how to cook. So we were looking to our coaches to teach us how to cook for ourselves. I don't know, Nina might be able to expand on that. But I do remember coming back from that week on the Cape, just, wow, feeling ready for the season in a way that I definitely had not been before the trip.
Does anyone else remember Coachy always saying, it always gets done? I remember so many times be on the bus, be at practice, I'd be like, but I have this and I have this and I have a bench, but it always gets done. It always gets done. And I feel like she was such a calming presence. I feel like it helped me realize that, yes, you're always, well, not always, but if you choose the path that maybe many of us have chosen of kids and career and this and that, you just got to balance, and her calming presence has stayed with me. It always gets done.
I'm gonna interject. I think I've thought many times over the years, and I've come back for other celebrations where I've seen what an amazing job Jen has done in building this community, not just a team, but a community that supports each other. It made me realize that maybe it wasn't such a stupid idea to put Title IX focus on women's sports, because that actually became a place that was protective for women in academia, for undergraduates, and help them grow their careers or help them build their other types of networks. Actually, women's sports has served us pretty well, even from the era that I was playing in. And so I think that it definitely has been beneficial at so many different levels for women in colleges.
It's probably easiest for me, but I see my teammates all the time. One of them is my best friend so thanks to Coachy for recruiting us together, because we are like soulmate best friends. She's the best. Yeah. She actually didn't stay all 4 years for Harvard Volleyball, but we connected from being recruited and joining together. And then from the span of my time over the 4 years, I just got dinner on Friday with two girls that I played with, Sindhu and Paige Keeby. And basically when anyone's in any city, we have some sort of group meet or group text where we try to connect, and it's the best. And I think we should try to get more years together too. I think that would be a lot of fun.
With young kids, like earlier, maybe like 10 years ago, it was harder to keep in touch with people, like young kids. And I was in medical school and residency, and I felt like all I could do is just like do what was right in front of me. And so that was true of like high school friends and volleyball friends. And then just really in the past, probably 5 years, I've really reconnected with a lot of people. In particular, Lolita Lopez, who's not here tonight, but I know a lot of you know Lola. We've really connected. And Catherine Betty, who was in my class, we've reconnected.
So good to see her. Yeah.
Yeah, I just saw Catherine and Lolita out in LA just 3 weeks ago. It was so fun. As soon as I'm like, I'm going to be there, they're like, boom, right back. And what's amazing, and I'm sure we all would agree with this, like I hadn't, when Lolita and I finally reconnected, I hadn't talked to her in like 10 years, and then it was just like, boom, you're right back with the same stories and connecting. And it's just someone who knows you from that, like, just really special, place at that point in your life, and so that's been really fun to reconnect with people. And in fact, one of the things we've talked about on, the board, Friends of Harvard Volleyball, is trying to grow those connections, So I'm excited there's a couple of my teammates who I'm not in touch with just because of, life and things like that. And I'm excited to reconnect with people.
I mean, I reconnected with Louise at that event. That actually, it was fantastic. The timing was great, because she and I had lost touch. I think being in San Francisco, you do bump into a lot of people today, but that was not the case in the late 80s when I first moved into the area. But Marlene Schutz, who organized our letter writing campaign, lived 3 blocks away from me in Upper Haight when I first moved to San Francisco. So it was terrific because she helped me understand some things about the team that I think I was just oblivious. I didn't notice at the time. She explained how I didn't realize she had dated our setter. And so that was how we got our setter. She recruited her. And it was just a little bit of she shared some of the history that I just had gone over my head. And it was helpful to have that context, even if it was 5 years later.
Wow.
Yeah, there were great stories that she, being a little bit older than I was, she would have been a junior when I was a freshman. And then my roommate and I, who, our captain, Isabel Holland, I don't think she's joined tonight. It's too bad because I'd love to hear her stories. And I wound up rooming for the rest of college together. So that was important to us. And our kids are around the same age. I think her daughter is also a sophomore at Harvard now, Anna Davis. It's been interesting because I didn't always know that I was staying in touch with people because they played volleyball. One example is I got recruited to support a pack started by somebody in my class. And I was looking at the picture of the 1980-81 squad 2 weeks ago. And I said, oh, wow, that's Janet Singer. And I sent her an email and said, did you play our freshman year, last club year? And she said, oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And I've been working with her for a couple of years on activism and organizing. And so it's kind of been interesting to like connect. Oh, founder of Crimson Goes Blue, who I volunteer for, was actually on freshman year, last club year squad. A lot of interesting intersections, not by design, but just, it's a small world when you're in the community. Yeah.
One of the things that I didn't appreciate at the time was just how much you have to do as a volleyball player when you're like balancing school and friends and volleyball. And I remember there would be firms would come on campus and say like, oh, we are recruiting specifically for student athletes. And I remember thinking, that's silly. Like, what do I have that's different? But I think with the years, I just realized that Harvard volleyball sort of forced me to figure things out. Like you have to show up to practice. You have to compete in the game. You have to get 8 hours of sleep. And it like forced me to learn how to manage my time and make my priorities align with make my time align with my priorities. And I feel like I've taken that everywhere. And I didn't really appreciate it, to your point, Coachy, like definitely did not appreciate it while I was a player. And it wasn't until later that I was like, yeah, I think I got a thing or two out of this.
I can think of 2 ways immediately. I mean, I think, during my 4 years, as I mentioned, we went from only 3 wins my freshman year to 21 wins my senior year. And it was truly a team effort. And I think it was about overcoming adversity because there was a lot in those 4 years, and also being willing to accept roles maybe that we didn't always want at the time, and understanding how all those pieces fit together, I think was a critical thing. Because I think we all come into Harvard as achievers. And so I think sometimes learning how to play a role in a certain situation is a really important key to developing leadership and developing for careers and so forth. And then the other thing that comes immediately to mind is, I'm a college volleyball coach. It's not a traditional career path for Harvard graduates. And I get that all the time of like, you went to Harvard and you're coaching volleyball. And I think at the same time, that Harvard degree and my experiences there's no question it has opened some doors for me, even in this profession that doesn't necessarily, seem like the typical profession for a Harvard grad. So there's no question people have recognized what went into getting that degree and playing on the team for 4 years.
I think when you're in it, it's sometimes, learning when you're in it, it's hard to be grateful sometimes because you're just, it seems tough and challenging and you get wrapped up in kind of some of the silly things. So yeah, I would just tell the current student athletes just to remind yourself to be so grateful for the opportunities that you have and where you are, and to enjoy, like Micah said, every moment.